Good morning. This is the Startup Field Guide. This morning I'm very excited to welcome Eynat Guez, our very talented and experienced founder of Papaya Global. Welcome, Eynat.
Hi, thanks for having me.
So excited. Your journey is an amazing story and a masterclass in resilience and customer empathy. You are going to be such a treat for our listeners, and I'm excited to dive in. So, as always, we start with just a little background on you. Maybe tell us a bit about your life before you started Papaya Global, what led you to do it, and then just in a kind of a short summary of what the business does.
Sure. So Papaya is my third company today. So I actually founded two services company beforehand, both on the domain of global workforce, global mobility. So I have to say that during my whole career, I was always kind of very keen and excited about the global aspects of workforce and how things actually works in different countries across the globe. And the Papaya was kind of the digital, I would say, transformation, the tech transformation to everything that I like and dislike about this industry as a founder of a bootstrap services companies beforehand. I live in Israel. I'm 45 years old. I have three small kids. All of them are actually Papaya. They call Papaya kind of their older kind of brother or sister. Because they all kind of grew up to Papaya. They can all see the logo everywhere around the world and they recognize it and so on. Just in a nutshell about what we are doing. So Papaya is a global workforce payment and payroll platform to support multinational organization, mainly enterprise kind of level of organization, with everything that they run and manage globally within their workforce stack. It can be full-time payroll employees, it can be contractors, vendors, and so on, with full integrations to everything they already have in the organization, from the HCM to the ERP side.
Fantastic. So let's start with your insight for starting the company and how you initially thought about the what that you would need to build to delight the customers.
So it's an interesting question because, as I said, I started this company with a lot of knowledge and experience in the industry. So when I was looking on clients and what is their biggest pain, it was always about the data exchange and about the frustration that, we hire people for them in China, for example, and they get an Excel with a lot of Chinese kind of terms, and sometimes it's in English, sometimes it's Chinese, and they just don't understand. And sometimes you just go back and forth or try to explain them what mandatory kind of compliances our requirement requires here and so on. And all of those things, when we were looking on that, we realized that the biggest opportunity that we have is to streamline everything and to unify everything that's going globally into the same language, into the same kind of terms and so on. But when we started as a bootstrap business. We needed to build, a very quick MVP and to assure that we bring value on day one, because I think one of the biggest kind of mistakes that you can do is think big is important, but you need to execute on smaller kind of tranches, because you cannot just execute after building a product for 3 or 5 years. And what we realize is that the first thing that will actually just make them more happy and remove the tension and the stress that they have within their payroll cycle is the assure that we bring them very easy reports and dashboards that they can see what happened and what didn't happen. Because when you think about it, payroll is one of those things. If you have 1,000 people that you need to serve and you didn't pay one of them, so you can say, okay, I just failed 1 out of 1,000 in a kind of on the statistic level. That sounds great, but this is a full person that didn't get paid 100% of his salary. So for him, it's a full failure. And the stress level that people eventually are at within the payroll cycle is very high, because it's time constraints. You have a lot of factors that are coming in and out, and you need to follow everything. You need to assure that you have good visibility, and eventually you need to assure that everything happens within this time frame and you executed everything. And we realized that just taking this pain and stress from them, okay, just giving them a dashboard that will show them where they are along this journey. I mean, if they have 1,000 people, 800 has been completed, 100 people are still kind of on the document collection stage. I mean, 50 hours needs to solve some individuals' kind of issues and so on with their managers and so on. Will remove a lot of the stress. Will actually get them feel that somebody sees them. And I think, by the way, that when you design a product, the acknowledgement of your client that you see them and you feel their pain and you are actually solving their pain is one of the most important things. It's much more important than a nice UI. It's much more important than any other things. I mean, eventually we are here to solve real pains, real problem, and real frustrations of people.
I think you just described empathy. You had a real belief that they were in pain and that you could solve their problem. Can you talk a little bit about your initial hypothesis for who would be your early adopter? You know, what was the profile of that business that you thought would be where Papaya would get initial traction? And then we can talk about how that might have changed over time.
Yeah, so, you know, it's interesting because when we started, we had this thesis that when you go up markets to enterprise clients, everything is sorted and everything is kind of super easy and so on. And those problems actually exist on early stage companies that are growing and so on. And this will be kind of our main kind of market. And we started there, but then we realized something. When you're stepping into organization and they only have 10 people that they serve globally. So, I mean, honestly, they can do that with an Excel sheet, right? It's relatively easy. You can track 10 people quite easily. 100 people get more complicated. 1,000 people, this is where things fails. And when we grew, we realized that if we don't want to be a transactional services that serves kind of 5 or 10 people kind of globally for an organization, we need to assure that we meet the needs of the 1,000 people and more kind of global workforce. And the interesting thing is that, you know, for me, the biggest kind of acknowledgement was that we were invited to participate in an RFP in APAC of one of Fortune 500 clients. And I said, okay, let's go and meet the team. We were very early stage. I want to understand what is their problems. And the team had sleeping bags in the office, okay? And I asked them, why do you have sleeping bags here? And they were like, listen, on the payroll cycle, we cannot afford ourselves to go home. We are actually sleeping in rotation, so we can all kind of capture data and eventually kind of send this and so on, and we won't miss the window of kind of time. And I was shocked, okay? Because I was like, okay, there are so many problems in their current kind of desk that we can solve. And I asked them, how come? I mean, there were very, very simple things here. How do you collect data? How do you consolidate data? Not sophisticated tech problems, okay? Very, very simple things. And I asked them, how come the organization does not solve it for you? And the second thing that they told me is that we don't have IT resources available for our needs. And, you know, that was my biggest kind of realization. In many, many cases in the organization is always very busy in solving their clients' problems, but they're not solving their back office or their internal team's problems. Now, in a lot of departments, the common practice is to buy tools, right? You are going to the CISO kind of team and they are constantly buying tools, they constantly have budget. But as you go to the office of the CFO, the HR team, and so on, they have much more limited budget. They have some tools that already kind of got, I would say, to the common ground, but they have a lot of things that are happening behind those kind of tools that are still very manually. And if you know how to recognize the things that they're actually doing very manually and you can bring immediate value, this is again goes back to the empathy, but also kind of being a very, very good partner to them, because this is where you get their attention. This is where you get their willingness to change, because the other side of it, I think investors constantly asked us, is who do you replace in the organization? How many headcounts do you kind of replace? And, you know, you cannot sell anything. By the way, in the area of AI is even kind of more loud and clear. I cannot come to you and sell you a great AI product if you think that it's going to replace you. So if you think that you're going to lose your job, you're not going to be my buyer, right? So the right way in is actually empowering people and assuring that you can help them to do their job better, but don't come with the I'm going to replace you, or everything that you do I can do better with automation, because that's not going to lead you anywhere.
So let me break down just for our listeners. You said a lot of really valuable things there. The initial ICP, or ideal customer profile, that you thought Papaya would be for, it sounds like we're early stage or let's call them small and medium-sized businesses, but you learned that they didn't have enough of a global workforce where perhaps an automated solution was considered necessary for their pain. However, you talked about a Fortune 500 customer, which surprised you. The sleeping bag story is one of my favorite. I mean, we tell entrepreneurs all the time, like, you've got to find desperation. I'm not sure there's anything more desperate than people sleeping in rotation in sleeping bags in their office. So you pivoted essentially to a different customer profile, people with a larger global workforce who had underinvested in the tools that would automate a lot of this. But instead of saying, hey, we're going to replace you, you're talking about augmenting, empowering those employees so that they can be much better at their job and hopefully not have to sleep at the office.
Yes, that's correct. And I think even I'll share a very kind of actual story for today, because CyberArk has Palo Alto just announced that they're going to acquire CyberArk. CyberArk were one of our very early global payroll clients. And we were very early stage bootstrap business. And I remember they sent us the security and privacy questionnaire that they want us to fill. And, it was like 10 page long. And I was looking at that, and I called my champion there, which was amazing person. She's still one of the most professional person that I know in this domain. And I told her, listen, I'm sorry, thanks for the opportunity. We are not able to even answer like 30% of this questionnaire. So I don't think that we are a good fit for you. And she said, no, we want you to build your product and your technology with us, and we will be a great partner because we understand what's missing in the market. So you're going to commit that you're going to grow into our privacy and security kind of requirements, but we are also going to be a great partner to you to understand what is our needs that the market is not solving. And I think finding a meaningful design partner in very early stages is very, very important. You need to invest a lot, and you need to give them obviously kind of the respect and the credits that they will be taking risks with you and they will invest. But if there is a mutual kind of interest here that you are solving for them and they can solve for you, this is super important. So I think that people are sometimes rushing to capture logos as design partners. And I said, logo will not get you anywhere. A very motivated, engaged design partner will, accelerate your platform and eventually kind of everything that you're doing much, much better.
What a surprise, because the conventional wisdom, and I hear it all the time in board meetings and investor panels, they tell founders, you don't want to go after the large segment of the market. There's too many regulatory issues, security, compliance, like these things will block you. But what you're saying is they were so desperate for an alternative, they were actually willing to work with you to bypass a lot of that and just ask for your commitment that eventually you would adhere to their needs.
Yes, and obviously you have the minimum kind of things that you need to comply with, right? It's not that they would take us at all stages and so on. Mm-hmm. But as long as they see a commitment, as long as they see an engagement, as long as they understand that we are willing to invest there to grow to their requirements, and they're willing eventually to understand the differentiation, what we bring to the table that they cannot buy in the market currently, this creates a very meaningful relationship, and is actually kind of open the way for you to work with large organizations to understand how they think, and also to build your product in a very, very designed way and correct way, to the market, instead of just going around and wasting a lot of time.
Can you give us some guidance for the founders out there? This design partner phase, if you can just go back in the time machine for a minute, how long did you actually work before you had what you knew was product market fit with that early set of design partners? And could you talk a little bit about how did you engage with them? Did you talk to them daily, weekly? Was it over Slack or some other mechanism? Like, what's the advice you would give based on your experience in that design partner phase where you're trying to get to a delighted customer in the end?
So I would start from the most important thing. When you are looking for a design partner, if you come to me and you want me as a design partner, if you're only looking for the logo, okay, kind of that you're gonna need that you're gonna add to your website, I know that, okay, everybody feels that and so on. Nobody wants to be in this position, okay. If you want a real design partners, respect, look on the people and see what they can bring to the table, actually treat them as champions, because this is actually finding champions, not sourcing only logos. And I think here people kind of really go in many cases after the logos and think that if they're gonna have a great slide showing like 10 great logos, that as design partners this will make any difference to the market. But this will not help you to build your product. This will not help you to scale. This will not help you in bringing great references and great success story. So find the right people within the organization that can be a good fit, not the organization only, and then build this relationship. This needs to be a very strong relationship, okay? It's not going to be, I mean, the nature of it, as design partner, you learn and you scale with them. So you obviously not going to meet all of the requirements, and you obviously kind of have a journey to go. So you need to have a very open relationship with them. You need to assure that there is a very high level of trust, that even if you fail them, something is not working, okay? I mean, your platform all of a sudden is not performing as you thought that it will, and you have a serious kind of issue that you need to perform. You have their trust, okay? They're not looking on that as, oh, this design partner, I mean, I agreed to be a design partner, and I mean, those guys just kind of disappeared and I have no one to talk to. Assure that first they have your direct phone, assure that you see them, assure that they get attention from all of the senior management team in the organization. This is how design partners should look like and should feel. Again, if this is only kind of a logo acquisition, that's maybe okay, but that's not going to lead to any meaningful kind of insight or any meaningful kind of real partnership.
And how long did it take you before they were referenceable? You know, we call it organic word of mouth. You know, your early customers start telling other people, this is an amazing product. I'm just curious how long you think, you know, that typically takes for, and how long did it take for you?
The nice thing about our business is that we are living from cycle to cycle, and I always tell the team that we are as good as our last payroll cycle with the client, okay? So once you have a good payroll cycle and then you have a second good payroll cycle, you're saying, okay, I have a change. All of a sudden, I have more hours within this stressful day. I know I feel more control and so on. And this is where you also need to ask for reference, okay? So, I mean, I think this is the second part of the relationship. It's not only kind of, it's a give and take. So if you invested a lot, if you made a real big difference, you can go and have a very good confidence to ask them, hey, can you be my reference clients? Can you build a case study with me and so on? And you can get there very early if you invest in the relationship kind of on very early stages. You cannot get there early if they don't see you in the room, if you're not engaged within the first kind of period of implementation. It's not going to happen.
Can we switch gears a little bit and talk about your amazing resilience and do it in the context of your investor experience? So you talked a little bit about when we first met, it was a bootstrap business, but you did pitch some investors over the course of the journey.
A lot, not some.
Can you talk a little bit about that and kind of how you managed that process? And, you know, obviously, eventually, those investors finally figured out what an amazing founder and business you have. But take us back so we can help people who are going through that process. It's a bit painful when you're in it. So any advice you can share would be great.
First, it's very painful, okay? And there are many days when you wake up in the morning and you said, okay, I'm going to go through a terrible day again, maybe, because I'm going to do 10 different pitches and maybe they're all going to end up with no's. And you need to assure that, you know, you keep your center, you keep kind of your vision, you keep kind of the focus on really achieving those things. And I always said, I mean, to people, and it's, by the way, it's very similar to sales, right? I mean, you don't pitch your product to 10 people and 9 are buying the product. I mean, probably you're going to pitch your product to 10 people and 1 will be a buyer, I mean, on the good kind of ratio of this. And it's the same with investors, and you need to respect it. I think that in some cases, founders step into the room. Obviously, there is a sense of urgency. Obviously, you need the money, okay? I mean, you need money to build your product. You need the money to get to where you want to get. But you cannot rush it. And you need to respect this, and you need to understand also that not all investors, or probably the majority of the investors, will not invest in you, okay? And I have investors that said no to me 2, 3, 4 times in a row. I mean, every single kind of round. Some of them, by the way, are still good friends, because I do respect the decision kind of the process that they had, and I do respect the understanding the why they chose not to invest in us, and why they didn't believe in this industry, or they don't think that this is a good use case for them, or they don't think they will bring a meaningful value to us. But I think that I probably got 1,000 no's, okay? When
1,000. I just want to make sure.
yes, 1,000, probably more, but that was part of it. But I had 2 realizations, which are very important. I think we spoke about it when we did the prep call. First, in some point of time, I realized that it's not about them not understanding, only about them not understanding us. It's about me doing something wrong in explaining to them, or me doing something wrong in the conversation with them, okay? And one of the investors kind of described it nicely to me. He said, investment process, founders are coming with PowerPoint. Eventually, I want to see an Excel sheet, and if it ends up well, I mean, they get a word sheet from me with a term sheet, obviously. So, but when you are thinking about that, I was very busy in the PowerPoint stage, okay? Explaining them the market, explaining them, I mean, the problems and so on. They don't understand the market. In a way, we are in a very boring and compliance kind of industry. So sometimes they don't even share the excitement that I do, because I really like this industry. And for them, it was all about show me the Excel, show me the business potential, show me how eventually this is a good investment for me. And it took me time to understand that I need to shift the conversation, that eventually it's not about what we do, it's about the total addressable market, it's about the revenue units, it's about the business that they can build, and about understanding the potential. Because honestly, with everything that happens currently in AI and the changes around the world, I can tell you one thing for sure: payroll is here to stay. I mean, at least for the next decade, okay? So everybody will still get their payslip. It's definitely going to get, I hope that's going to get a better experience. We're working very hard towards this and so on. But payment and payroll are here to stay. So it's actually a very solid business. It's not going to change over time. Nothing is going to disrupt payroll. I mean, because it means that government completely disrupted the way they think. I hope that it's going to happen personally, but I think that, even if they're going to announce today, we still have 2 decades until it's going to be fully performed. And I think here, with investors, I learned 2 things. First, that I need to understand how they think, and I need to be more ready to address their needs. And second, which for me was probably the hardest realization over time, definitely raising funds during pregnancy, is that not everyone will see the world the way that I see it, okay? I really like working. I've been working in the past 5 years probably of my life. I also like my kids, but I mean, for me, I don't see any scenario where I'm not going to invest in my career. But I think that in many cases, when I stepped into the room with 5 months kind of belly of pregnancy, investors would look at me, and obviously they would not ask it loud, but it was very clear in the conversation and dynamic in the room what's going to happen after you're going to give birth. Maybe you're going to lose interest and so on. And I think here, and I actually give this advice a lot, because I advise a lot of female founders when they are kind of finding out that they're pregnant, or they're just about or they are planning to have kids. And I tell them, raise this up and loud. This is my only thing that I learned about myself. Don't try to hide it. Say it very clearly. I like my career. I'm going to be a mother. I mean, I'm still fully invested in the business. That's not going to change. And I think that once you say it out loud, it's changed the dynamic, because people hear you say it. Maybe they believe it, maybe they don't. That's okay. This is on them. But at least I said it very clear and loud, and then they can take it from there and not have this conversation in their head and kind of try to think what I feel and what I want to do. I mean, once I've become a mother.
I mean, Eynat, you are such an amazing inspiration. As a father of 3 daughters, I thank you for sharing that. That's
Thank you.
It's really incredible, and the fact that you maintain your conviction, right? That I'm sure there were tough days, right, where you felt somewhat deterred, but you kept going. It's just amazing resilience. Where does that come from?
Well, we can go back in time, but I think every resilience eventually started in your childhood and kind of your childhood experience. And I think for me, it's definitely came from there. And I mean, you know, the way that we grew up at home, my mother was, I lost my mother in a very early age. She had kind of severe kind of brain damage in a very early kind of days of my life. So I needed to grow up very quickly overnight. But I think also it's a matter of mindset. I mean, over time in my life, I always said that I'm looking on the worst case scenario. If the worst case scenario for me is that I'm going to try 10,000 more times and eventually I'm going to fail, at least I know that I tried my best. And when I failed, I know that, you know, I mean, I'm letting it go in a very clean kind of heart. And I think sometimes people are afraid to get to the point where they tell themselves, that's it, I failed, I don't believe any longer. But if you still believe, I mean, you need to go ahead, you need to push, you need to assure that you are, and you are the biggest believer of everything that you do. By the way, you cannot be a founder without believing in your vision, your story, what you are eventually building, because you're going to have so many people around you. And, you know, I even look currently on the greatest founders behind everything that is related to AI and the constant competition that they have in between them every single day, every single morning. I mean, there are people moving from one company to another. I mean, they need to constantly raise, amazing kind of development on the AI and so on. They need to have a big belief. So they have a lot of money in the bank, but eventually they constantly fight every single day to sell their product, to sell their vision, to be on top of the market. And you need to be in this mindset. If you're not in this mindset, this is probably not the right kind of job for you.
Yeah, it's so true. And I think it's a mindset you have to maintain over a long period of time. It's everybody can work hard for a few days or a few months sometimes, but you're talking about years. So it's amazing. So thank you. So 2 more questions just in the interest of time. The first is, I remember you saying that your co-founders, some of your early employees, were technologists, but really had no domain expertise at all. And one of the things we talk about with founders a lot is how important it is just to be thinking in the future and working backwards as opposed to thinking in the present and thinking very incrementally. And so I'd love you to share a little bit about the fresh ideas that having founders or co-founders who didn't actually come from the space to complement you, how helpful that was in actually building a product that was totally different than what people had seen before.
Yeah, I think the secret here is to assure that when you are co-founding a company, you have in the room a mixed team, okay? You need to have people with different kind of mindset and thinking, because if you just fill the room with people that thinks exactly like you and eventually you are all kind of seeing the same thing, maybe you're going to succeed, maybe you're going to fail, but this is a much bigger risk. And I think the fact that I came from the business, very operational side, I have co-founders that came from completely different domains, cybersecurity, very strong enterprise kind of software kind of business sides. And they were able to ask me questions of why this is important, what's the problem here, what we are trying to solve, why no one solved that before, trying to understand how people think within our ICPs, within our industry and so on. This really helps us, because I think that unless you are developing, you are solving a problem with very deep kind of technology experience, and you know exactly that you are going to eventually develop this feature to this industry because this is what you've done your whole life and so on, you need to keep a very open mind. And everywhere along the way, by the way, for me, it's more about having technical co-founders and being non-technical. 2 years to the business, we pivoted the business quite substantially. We acquired a payment company and we decided that we are not an HR tech company, we are fintech company mindset. And that was probably the biggest decision that I took. I knew nothing about payment. If I would knew now, 50% of the things that I know, when I took this decision to acquire this company, I would probably not do that, okay? Because there were so many obstacles and so many difficulties and things that I were not aware, that in many cases that was the best decision that I've done, because I wasn't aware of everything that would hold me to do that. But I think that you need to keep an open mind. You need to look around you. You need to understand that things are changing. And this relationship between technical kind of co-founders to the business is super important. I think that many companies are failing because they have great tech people in the room, but they don't have anyone that thinks business. How we are going to convert this into revenues? How we are going to bring this to the market? Is it really something that somebody will pay for? And we are all eventually we are all consumers of great products that are solving problems, not just great products that are great products.
All right, last question. I know we're up in time, and I'm so grateful that you did this, so thank you. What's the one lesson that you would share with our listeners as it relates to, you said, if I could go back in time, all the things I know now, what's kind of that one bit of advice that you want to pass on to the group?
I think it's a great question, and I think that the one thing that I'm constantly trying to teach myself, or to eventually kind of be in the situation, is to assure that I always look a year, 2 years ahead of what we want to go, and ask myself, what is it that I don't know now, and who can help me kind of fill this knowledge and gaps? Because being an entrepreneur is very hard. In a way, people always expect you to know everything about the stage that you are, but you know nothing, right? You started with building a company that sold in $1 million, all of a sudden you are selling in $100 million. It's not the same organization. You didn't came with this knowledge and experience. So assure that every single stage along the road, if you are currently in $1 million, go and find the mentors that can lead you to the $10 million, the coaches, the advisory board, the people that actually kind of did this, and then go to the next milestone and the next milestone and so on. Because this is a very different mindset, and I think a lot of people are failing in switching this mindset in the ideal time that they need, and then they are failing themselves. So I think I did it a bit too late in the journey, honestly, and I think currently it's a very, very important thing for me to always kind of fill myself with great people and advisors that can help me to be the leader that I need to be for the company 3 years' time from now.
You're a learn-it-all, not a know-it-all, and that humility and desire to learn, that is the key. It's fantastic, right? That you would recognize you needed to surround yourself and keep learning at every stage. That is the secret. So thank you for sharing that.
Thank you.
You have such an amazing story. A successful founder journey. It requires finding product market fit, not proving it, and being resilient and determined and learning. So what an inspiration you are. I can't wait to share this episode with everybody, and thank you again for your time.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. It's been great.
Okay.